Thank you for listening. I'm your host, John Vargas. Please like, subscribe the Grab Lives Instagram page. If you can go to that and interact as much as possible. Some of our stuff has been shadow banned or put on the back burner when a reel comes out. It doesn't come up on people's feeds. So if you interact with that, it really helps our algorithm to get things moving towards helping first responders. We talked about had some guests on talk about some topics that are triggering for the algorithm. So if you can do that, it'd be great. Like, subscribe the Apple and Spotify platforms and YouTube as well. Everything we say and do on this podcast does not reflect the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. The views and opinions are not of the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. Also, to start off with, something I am promoting is the 343 Fund Project, which is ran by Angela Scudin in honor of her fallen FDNY husband. It's about getting firefighters to go do holistic healing and primarily using ibogaine. So if you're interested in this, you can apply on their 343fund.org website. And also, if you just want to help a firefighter, you can donate $3.43. And what that does is it can allow sponsoring someone to go get some healing done. And the transformation that's happening with ibogaine is unreal. That's why I'm promoting it as much as possible. So the proof is in the pudding with that one. So just check that out. It's really, really powerful stuff. We had the 343 Fund episode. If you want to check that out, it's really cool. Angela talks about her story and what it's all about. I also have something called the Inside and Out program. And what that is you can message the Grab Lives Instagram page about your interest with it. But what it is it's a 90-day program of you working with me to help you find healing within yourself from all of your traumas, all of your stuff that keeps you from being a great husband, a great wife, a great father, a great mother, a great coworker. And what it does is it goes into your patterns of why you do things. We get to the root of your problem and we can clear those things biologically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It's just trauma, man. And I'm here to help you transform that. So if you're interested with that, it's a 90-day program. It's very advanced. So you have to stick with it if you're interested in dedicating yourself to change. So for today, I am introducing Xavier Dagba. He's a really talented person. He calls himself a wordsmith and an alchemist. And this guy does a ton of workshops based on understanding what the shadow self is, how to understand heart-based consciousness. But when this guy talks, man, he shook me to my core when I was listening to him, man. And he really gets you to think deep. And he has such a way with words and a way with structuring the algorithm of the mind, the algorithm of the way we trick ourselves into believing in something that's not true, and to realizing our power and to exercise that power in a beautiful way. This was a great episode. I hope to do more episodes with Xavier. I really honor this person. So I'm really happy to work with him and have this long conversation. It is a bit longer, so if you take the time and listen to what Xavier has got to say, it'll change you for sure. So thank you everyone for listening, and I love you. Take care.
It's time for Grab Lives.
We are recording, sir. So thank you everyone for listening. I'm your host, John Vargas, and we got Xavier here. Hey, brother, I've been following you for a while now, and I'm so impressed at the way you're able to navigate human consciousness. And there's a lot of, I would say, pretenders out there on the internet, and you're not one of them. And so
Thank you.
I'm looking for people who really can bring the light to understanding what's happening on this planet right now, on for human evolution, for human understanding, for people who are awakening to themselves. And so thank you so much for coming, brother.
Man, it's an ultimate pleasure, and Finding guys who are genuinely interested in what is going on, what we're
Mm,
moving through, and also how to navigate it in the most heart-centered way possible. I think
mm.
it's usually unique and special. So I am excited to just having this, to just be here to have this conversation, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I love how you consider yourself as an alchemizer,
Mm-hmm.
and because essentially that's really what we are. We're about transforming things that need to be integrated and looked at. And I think people are afraid to make those big steps within themselves. And I think it takes great courage for people who do, who come out of it. And then now they're able to teach and inspire others through their own
Mm-hmm.
personal human experience. And I really believe that this is the dawn of human experience. And we are learning from each other and giving each other our own gifts through our own just I would say our own blueprint for how
Yeah.
we're able to move through life, move through our shadow self. So that is something I did want to talk about because the shadow is a very I would say misinformed, complex situation within ourselves. And the people
Mm-hmm.
who've come out of their own shadow have really understood it. And so I know for myself, I've had to face myself, and the only way through that was experiencing my own self. And so I
Mm-hmm.
know I would love for you to explain in your own language what that shadow part is and how we experience it, how we move through it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the simplest ways I can explain the shadow is just imagine that growing up you had um different aspects of you. Like I like to invite people to think of themselves as a collection of
Mm,
aspects of traits. You know, you have the warrior, you have the jokester inside, you have the anger within, you have your capacity for joy and all of these different aspects. Now, growing up, we often receive some feedback from our environment, which is this aspect of you is desirable, this aspect of you is not desirable.
mm,
Like if you get, for example, hostile and aggressive, and like, the most it is very likely that you're gonna receive the reflection that you can't express that.
mm,
Um, or if you get like if you are the happy, the pleasant, the agreeable type, you will most likely receive reinforcement of that. So growing up, there is a very unconscious process of shadow development where aspects of us that our caregivers or environment is basically telling us, oh, these are undesirable for some reason. And it could be the natural process of socialization where you're
mm,
playing even with your friends and you get excluded when you show up a specific behavior. Because
mm,
there is a pain in the exclusion, you start to realize, this trait that I have is not welcome here. Therefore, I will find a way to either repress it or not express it
mm,
when I'm in a specific environment. So basically, for somebody who is tuning into this, I would say the shadow is a collection of the parts of you that you don't even know you have yet, or that are dormant, or that you learn to repress at some point in your journey, and you might not even be aware of how that programming unfolded. That's what the shadow is. And it goes beyond that, because it also contains the gifts that you might not know you have,
mm,
or the gifts that you were reflected growing up that it wasn't really safe to fully express. Because when you expressed them back then, there was maybe ridicule. It wasn't maybe appreciated the way you wanted. Maybe you received humiliation instead of praise.
mm,
So the shadow is that it is basically the part of you that says, I will hold for you what you don't know how to hold or express yet.
mm,
And many people are scared of the shadow because, we repress something because there is pain attached to it, usually. So reclaiming what is in the shadow demands that you build a healthy relationship with pain. It's almost deciding, hey, I'm going to voluntarily put myself through something that is difficult and challenging and painful so that I can reconcile with an aspect of myself that I've had to repress in the past, whether it was done consciously or unconsciously. And The other thing I just like to say about the shadow, it is, I like to think of it as the dark face of your higher self, if we want to
Mm.
use that terminology. Um, or the dark side of your divine essence. But dark here does not mean negative. Dark here does not mean that your shadow is out to get you. So that's where I would like to begin with that conversation. And I'm happy to go deeper in there if you'd like to.
You are one hell of a wordsmith, and
Mm,
I love how you just simply put all that together in such an effortless way because it seems like you've experienced it in yourself, right? And I know,
yeah.
like when I experienced my spiritual awakening, it was it rattled me to my core, and it
Yeah.
was like everything hit all at once.
Hmm.
It was devastating because
Hmm.
the truth had to be revealed in myself, and it was like all these different archetypes of myself had to they were screaming at
Hmm.
me to just to have me listen for once because I
Hmm.
was running from pain for so long. And as soon as I gave myself the willingness and the courage to just say, "Hey, what do you got to say?" and sit with all these versions of myself, and being able to have an open heart and then look at the walls that I built up that was protecting myself from actually listening to myself. That it took a few years, and
Hmm.
also just like honesty and just willpower and love. And so like I would say it's not an easy task. It is
Hmm.
not, and I would say also by the same token, like it is also the liberation, the gift that we receive from it, to realize,
Yeah.
hey, I realize what this part of myself is doing. It's
Yeah.
hurting, so from deep hurt, we're able to see ourselves in the biggest light. And I
Yeah.
definitely realized, like through my own expression of self, that um, I've learned to just be able to do it in an effortless way now. But before, it was just tough because of the programmings, because of the way I was raised, because of the limitations I put myself on.
Yeah.
And there were the realization I had from it was the fact that I had to take that ownership and the
Hmm.
responsibility to give
Hmm.
myself that courage. And the moment I did that, that's when transformation came.
Yeah.
So I know I would love for you to kind of to talk about like the radical shift that's happening within human consciousness and human evolution right now, because I think there's a lot of misnomers and nuances to put language to that as well.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many layers of that shift.
Mm,
And if I'm going to basically approach it from the lens of integration, which is the journey of bringing all parts of ourselves back home, it's
mm,
like making the unconscious conscious, as the Jungians usually like to say. We are undoing a huge paradigm. The paradigm that we are undoing is a paradigm that was built on fragmentation and separation. If you pay attention to the world, for example, we have frontiers, we have borders and all of that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, but we love things compartmentalized. If you pay
mhm,
attention to how our power structures function, we separate them in blocks. It's like this is going to be the executive, the legislative, this is going to be
mhm,
this is going to be that. It's like we've learned how to compartmentalize ourselves. If you pay attention to our psychology, developmental psychology, it's like, you grow up and at some point you just like bury your past, kill the boy and the man will appear. It's
mm,
like the language that we've learned to use is I want to say a separating language. And it's played its role, and I understand that on some levels we need to identify and sometimes define things, but we are really attempting at the moment to live holistically. So there's this shift that is going where the separation between body, mind, and spirit wants to collapse. That's just one
mm,
example. If we pay attention to the field of health, for example, the best practitioners I know will ask you if you have a physical illness, they'll ask you how is your emotional or mental health. They will ask you, hey, to pay attention maybe to your, they'll ask you if you meditate. They'll ask you if you have some form of spiritual practice. They will attempt to address as well what is going on in the body. But more and more people begin to understand that this whole thing is interconnected, and we are learning. We want to live that. It's not something that we just want to understand
Mm.
intellectually. We want to embody it. So the shield or the veil between conscious and unconscious is dissolving.
Mm.
And, you know, we are really navigating times of revelation.
Mm.
That means on all layers of existence, what was not perceived wants to be perceived. That includes within yourself. And that means people are going to get more triggered than ever before, because every trigger reveals what was not integrated or loved within ourselves yet. That means people are going to experience some more, mental instabilities than ever before. That also means it's an opportunity for massive transformation and expansion. So there's so much that is going that is going on that requires that we dismantle all these false separations that we built within ourselves. We are basically defragmenting. I mean, if I'm going to use computer language, for example, imagine that you have this hard drive, and through time you've been using the computer and saving files here and there, creating folders here and there on different parts of your disks, and at some point everything is just jammed. Information is not being stored properly on the on the hard drive, not because there's not enough space, but
Mm.
because it is so disorganized, because it is so discombobulated. Things are all over the place. And the defragmentation, which is the integration of the hard drive, is basically, let's organize everything in a harmonious way so that we can reestablish the flow, so that we can work again optimally, like we were intended to operate on this field at the beginning. So there is this massive process of, I want to say, revelation, to use some a little bit of biblical esoteric terms, we would say apocalypse. But if you really go into the etymology, the Greek etymology of the word, it is about revelation. That's all it
Mm.
is. It's about revelation, truth coming to light. And that means one of the most important relationships people get to work on now is not even the relationship with themselves, in my opinion. That relationship matters tremendously, but it's the relationship with truth with a big T.
Mm.
It's like, how healthy is my relationship with truth? That means, how do I respond when I am being shown an undesirable truth? I like to compartment to, well, let's use the word compartmentalize. I like to put truth in two categories. There are desirable truths, the ones that we like and we are at peace with. It's easy to digest. You know, let's take some spiritual cliches like, it's all love. That's universal truth. Everybody likes to agree with that. And then there are some more undesirable truths that sometimes we don't want to look at, especially when these truths are about us. Let's say there's some relational dysfunction you're experiencing, and there's a thought form that keeps coming that is inviting you to pay attention to some of your patterns. Oh, that's an undesirable truth, because that means you might have to change. That means it's not just about the other person. That means I have some responsibility in the dysfunction. That means I have to
Mm.
examine myself. One of the key important things that will help you, whether it's with your relationship with the shadow, with yourself, with your brightness, with the world at large, is, what is my relationship with truth with a big T? Am I available? Am I willing? And it's one of the scariest questions to ask ever. Because when you start saying, I want to see truth, prepare for transformation. And sometimes
Mm,
for transformation that will take you through a dark night of the ego, a transformation that will cause you to disidentify with who you know yourself to be right now. And this, I mean, that's terrifying. Just terrifying because we are
totally.
so attached to control and so many things. So, to kind of give a big arc of what is going on at the moment, I want to say this could be seen as a big arc. This is a lifetime of transition. Like the lifetime itself is a lifetime of transition, which means the world is shifting and expecting to have things so clear all the time. Post World War, for example, we could say the energy was more steady. Like there weren't so many shifts going on right now. Pay attention to the speed of evolution of technology.
Yeah.
Think, I mean, if somebody fell asleep in 2015 and woke up today with everything that has shifted, AI and blah blah blah, the person would be like, holy shit, has it been 75 years? No, it's only been 10. So yeah, this is yeah, forgive the long rant, but this is my analysis of
Yeah.
the what we're going through at the moment.
Yeah, so well put, Xavier. Like it is bizarre, right? And I think because we've fixated on this linear perspective of how things should be, and we've attached ourselves to that when in hindsight we're illuminating this piece that is multidimensional, and we're expanding our awareness to that in itself. And with that part is like the pieces of us that have been fragmented and that require integration need to be seen, they need to be felt, they need to be heard and experienced. And one good thing a friend of mine had told me is like a shadow is also an aspect of someone seeing it because it's behind you. You can't really
Mhm.
see it. So a lot of it is just it's forgotten or it's missed. So when you also collaborate on how humans are supposed and designed to connect is
Yeah.
a bigger part of the whole, because we require a tribal aspect of ourselves, because these people we connect with can show us our blind spots.
Yeah.
And that's why relationships are one of the hardest things, because they're mirrors of each other, and
Yeah.
they show us what we're missing, our patterns, our behaviors, and the things we're not willing to admit. And
Yeah.
I truly believe that human connection is the big part here, because it's not done in isolation. Our
Mhm.
healing is not done in isolation; it's done through connection, and we
Mhm.
just are so thirsty for that. And it's one of the big requirements, I think, that has been we're redefining that shattered part of humanity. And I
Yeah.
think especially for the fragmentation of the people who are putting so much service out there, they're getting hit
Mhm.
so hard right now. And I'm speaking of like the veteran communities and
Yeah.
the first responder communities, because we're getting hit so hard that the
Mm.
fact that these people are going through such a crisis because they put so much service and we're not getting anything in return from
Yeah.
the administrations, and for the people who say thank you but no thank you,
Yeah.
and it feels like a slap in the face. And
Yes.
so I think right now it takes great responsibility from all of us to like stand up and be like, hey, no, that's wrong. There's a
Mhm.
harmonious defiance for standing up against what we see in the systems that are crumbling, and our
Mhm.
word matters so much. And I think as the systems are falling apart, we're watching this, we're like, whoa, there obviously is something bigger at play here, because
Yeah.
these systems that were set in place, they do not honor humanity, they do not honor this planet, they do not honor
Mhm.
the evolution that's taking place. And
Mhm.
so it takes great courage for us to all anchor in and illuminate within ourselves our light, our shadow, and
Yeah.
so we can be the anchors and the cornerstones of what's being rebuilt, what after
Mhm.
this death process has to take place. And and
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm very I'm very determined in understanding how things are operating through cycles, this through a nonlinear viewpoint. And through so
Mhm.
like these cycles, I've been through many deaths and rebirths, but they've gotten actually more like they gotten ramped up the last few
Mhm.
years. and more
Mhm.
compressed, to where I've had to like be like, whoa, like I'm going through another death and rebirth cycle. Do I
Mhm.
have the energy or the willpower to even go through this again? And
Mhm.
I think it was just, I can just only speak from my own personal experience. I think it was just, there was a requirement of myself to step into the role that I'm playing for these things to be integrated quicker, so I can
Yeah.
be in that state,
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so I
that's an
think that,
important point you're making at the there. It's like stepping into the role that you have right now, which I would just assume is something that was compelled by your heart, by your soul to a certain degree. Um, one thing you mentioned about you know, people who feel kind of abandoned by the system at the moment. And it's a very real thing, whether it's veterans, whether it's firefighters, whether it's all these people who are in these places where they are just pouring their hearts out there. And it feels like there's an ungrateful system out there.
mm,
That, I mean, so, and I would love for things to be so different. I would love for things to be so different. And when you look at the situation, when you put the lens of the alchemist on for a second, you start realizing this is the world saying you can no longer afford to be at the mercy of this system.
mm,
And it's like you gotta dig within yourself to find that place of power within you
mm,
that could allow you to have your emancipation, if I'm gonna put it this way, from the power that the system has had over you. It's like it's gonna force you to meet so many core wounds that we often have. It's just like feeling abandoned by somebody who was supposed to benevolently look after you. It's
mm,
like I've done my part, and how come it is not being reciprocated the way I needed it to be reciprocated? It is such core pain, like feeling
mm,
the betrayal. The betrayal, the exclusion, the alienation, and all of that. These are it's like when you just when you say I want to feel my own power, some of these wounds are sacred wounds along the way.
mm,
Many people in these lines of work that you've mentioned, they're experiencing the wound of betrayal at the moment. It's like I had a sacred contract with society. I honored my part of the contract, and the other side is not honored a part of the contract.
mm,
It's like, now how do I show up in this situation? Two things. Do I show up from the perspective, and this will probably sound so difficult. Do I stay in that position where I feel like the child that has been abandoned by a parental figure, and I either collapse on myself or I scream for the system to shift and to give me what it owes me? Or do I take it as the opportunity to dive in deeper and to find a form of power that is independent? I mean, we still work with the world around us, but there's a
mm,
power within us that is beyond what the system appears in the moment. It's the same power that causes you to say, I'm going to start this freaking show. I will still serve. I'll still have my job as a firefighter. Or, maybe I'm gonna have this job for a while, or I don't know what your aspirations are there, but I will let my soul be expressed. And you've mentioned how healing happens in community. I think the new solutions that we need for the new world also happen in community.
mm,
I am really a big fan of decentralized transformation, and I think it is part of our future. The same way
mm,
the body works as an organism, where you can have an amputated leg and the organism will still find a way to keep functioning
mm,
because it is able, it's like there's such intelligence in the body that at a micro level your liver is able to find ways to organize itself so that it works as an organism. It is also working with the whole,
mm,
but if you take away one limb, that won't cause the liver to die. It
mm,
will still find a way to function. anyways, that may not be the best analogy, but the whole point I want to say is like community oriented solutions that are at the level of the community, more holistic, instead of depending on some sort of like bigger authority that may actually not give a shit
Mm,
about the needs of people. I think we are coming to that sobering realization that there's no human being out there that is your savior. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter who they, what political party they belong to. There's no human being out there that is your savior. And it's going to take a sovereign revival, like a sovereign. Yeah, I think we are going through that sovereign revival. It's like people
mm,
who feel victimized have never felt more in pain than right now, because
mm,
many feel more left out, more abandoned than ever before. But also people who are really in tune with their power have never felt more empowered. I know so
mm,
many people, they feel like shit, I can decide to take an idea, to start a podcast about it, to bring this out to the world. And there are so many tools that can empower me more than ever before. And I just need, to bear my own cross, to carry my light to a certain degree, and I can make it happen. And I've seen this happen so fast, way more than
mm,
ever before, way more. So the acceleration on both sides, acceleration of desperation, people feeling intense desperation, and some people feeling intense acceleration and expansion all at
mm.
once. It's crazy. I really think it's nuts right now.
No, I totally agree with you. And dude, it's crazy when you talk about this. Like I get chills just thinking about how intelligent we are,
Mm,
and I want people to like start to have the desire or the earnest need to want to feel that, because it's so beautiful, and it gets me choked up when I'm in awe of how powerful we are. And to
mm,
get there though, you have to go through your emotional debris. You have to face your
yes,
wounds.
yeah,
And there came a marker in my life where I was afraid of feeling my own power because
yeah,
I didn't know the tools or the things I needed in order to embrace that. And so I think a lot of it is just poor guidance and just poor
mhm,
education on what that power is. And it really is it's just a shard of that divinity that's within you expressing itself in the expression of expression. It's a
yeah,
fractal within a fractal of
yeah,
what we are. And I really truly believe that. And the more I started to embrace it, the more the truth of who I am started to step forward. And then it became even more rattling to my cage. I was like, wow, this is a bit much. And even for like my nervous system to hold that, I had to work on that. So I actually
yeah,
had to start to embrace somatic and bodily functions, functional
mhm,
movements in order for my body to actually carry that power, that frequency, to make more space in order for the integration to come into place, for it to be anchored into my system and to
yeah,
walk in that manner. And I think
yeah,
what actually took me there was the power of the heart. When
mhm,
I started to mend the mind heart connection, that's what took place. That's when things started to shift. And so I know you're big on the power of the heart, and so I'd love for you
mhm,
to explain what that means on a physical level and also
mhm,
an esoteric level, on an emotional
mhm,
level, because it's the way I've come into an agreement with myself with is it's this Christed consciousness that's needed to be unlocked,
mhm,
and that open unconditional love uh becomes this power, really, right? The power of the heart. And
mhm,
I can't really stress it enough how that has become such a guiding force in my life. But it's never been taught that this is
yeah,
a version of us that needs to take lead instead of our mind. But
yeah,
our mind still collaborates with it. So it's a very intricate, connected
yeah.
cohesion with these two parts of ourselves.
Hmm. I mean, I think so many shifts that we go through right now are extremely counterintuitive. And
Mm,
that's because they can be very puzzling. And there is something you said about being afraid of our power. And I think, I love everything that you've laid out there. The other thing that I feel like most people don't realize is how we love the benefits that come from not being in touch with our power.
Mm,
There are some benefits that come from that, especially when we haven't learned how to be compassionate with ourselves yet. Let's say you choose to reclaim your power, you go after a goal, and it doesn't work out well. If you're not compassionate with yourself, you're gonna shame yourself for not succeeding at what you attempted. So usually, instead of going that route, people prefer looking for somebody to blame,
mm,
so that it's like, oh, no, 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 the blame has to go. If they still live in the consciousness of like somebody needs to be blamed for this, it's like, oh, it needs to be somebody else, because if it's not somebody else, it's therefore it's gonna have to be me. But I
mm,
can't handle more low self-worth. I
mm,
can't hack my self-worth some more. So choosing to lean towards our power is basically demanding, are you willing to let loose and to let go of the benefits that come from remaining powerless? Because
mm,
if I am powerless, therefore somebody else has power over me. It's not my fault, it's them, and all of that. So the responsibility, the feeling of like sheer responsibility that comes with like, I'm going to embrace my power, is scary. The reason
mm,
why I use the word compassionate there is because to me, compassion is the language of the heart. Without compassion, power is really unforgiving,
mm,
or going for power is extremely unforgiving, because power is the most messy thing ever. What I mean by that is people want to just experience things with ultimate perfection. If I go after a goal, I want this to happen to I want it to be, I don't know, I want it to succeed and all of these different things. We have all these conditions of perfection over how
mm,
we need to express our power and we need to express our light. But it's so messy. Like
mm,
I'm taking the example of this podcast that you're doing. I can't I have a podcast myself. And the
mm,
technical mistakes and mishaps that often happen in the process of creating this thing. I don't know. You set yourself up to have a beautiful recording with somebody, and then you record things, and then boom, it didn't record the way you wanted. There's so much mess that can unfold, and that's also part of the beauty. But
mm,
if we bring such an uncompassionate perspective to how we express power, it becomes this sword that cuts you too.
mm,
And that's the reason why the heart must be online, for so many reasons. The first reason is, what we don't realize is, choosing to reclaim your power, it's a medicine journey.
mm,
It is not just about ascending and becoming bigger and all that, which is, it's also good and nice and all that. But it's a medicine journey, because your heart is going to ask you, can you integrate the part of you that can handle the possibility of humiliation? You want to reclaim your power, you want to go out there and put your mission out in the world, or you want to take responsibility for a specific area of your life. Let's say a relational aspect. Can you stand in a place where somebody is reflecting some of your relational wrongdoings, and you take responsibility humbly?
mm,
That means you can be with shame. That's power. The capacity to be with shame without shutting down, without being defensive, and without attacking the other person. That's power. And it's a
mm,
power that is going to also demand deep humility.
mm,
I mean, I, for one of my strong patterns, especially in relationships, is when I feel like I have not done anything that is reprehensible, and I feel blindsided by some form of attack. It could
mm,
be, sometimes defensiveness wants to come up. The power it takes to disarm the defensiveness and to become available for resolution, that's power.
mm,
So power is not glamorous at all. If the heart is not online, it's not going to be a healthy form of power that will be expressed. It's going to be the tyrannically self imposed power that
Mm.
says, I need no imperfections right here. I need to always be bright. I don't know how to love myself when I'm not bright. And
Mm.
that's another form of tyranny, the tyranny of kind of goodness, the tyranny of virtue, the tyranny that says, I will not love myself when I happen to show up from a perspective that doesn't honor the new spiritual standards that I've imposed on myself. It is necessary for the heart to be online. And the heart will constantly be asking the question, are you willing to let me love the aspects of you that you were conditioned to see as unlovable? If you basically speak to your heart on a daily basis through many interactions, especially the interactions that trigger us the most, they will be, and I've been able to see that through my facilitation with almost 100% accuracy. Every single situation that is challenging, every single situation where you feel a little bit exposed, your heart is asking, are you willing to learn to love this aspect of you that you were conditioned to see as unlovable? And every time you say yes, a new aspect of your power become embodied. So there are so many meanings to the heart that I don't even know where to start. But what I would love to say is the master key.
Mm.
And I mean that literally, not just as master key of a door, which it is as well, but it
Mm.
is the key of the master as well,
Mm.
which is that is the initiation. Unless that power is something that remains here, above the heart. We can think about it, we can conceptualize it, we can speak to it, but can we feel it? Can we emote it? Can we
Mm.
actually let it transform the body? Can we express it? Can we walk it into the world? Um, and so many people, I think many people have this deep unconscious knowing, which is they know that if they let an idea take hold inside of the heart, it will torture them, literally torture them,
Mm.
until they allow themselves to express it. So most people will either choose to repress their power, let that power live in the shadow. They will choose a lifetime of regret because they know if they let their heart take hold of that idea enough, it will demand immediate transformation. And that's another scary thought for many.
Mm.
So I think it is no mistake why teachers like Jesus mentioned the heart as part of the way or the way, because if the antidote to a society that was built on separation and fragmentation, it is basically to bring things back into the heart. The heart has no hemispheres. The mind has left and right, or the brain has left and right. So it needs the binaries. That's how it makes sense of the world. But the heart is the core of integration. There are teachers like Carolyn Miss. She considers the heart as the middle of the hourglass, you
Mm.
know and I think it has potent symbolism. It's like this is the place where things come back to become whole again.
Mm.
So yeah, the esoteric symbolism of the heart, the reason, the fact that the magnetic field that the heart emanates is so much more powerful than what the brain emanates. I think there's no mistake, it is really the engine of creation. I like to think of it as the engine of creation. It is more than just a pump. It is more than just, you know, this thing that pumps blood in the body. It is literally an engine of light. That's how I relate to it. And this may sound a little esoteric, but I think having a healthy relationship with the heart is one of the invitations at the moment.
Mm. Everything you do, dude, when you're talking, I got so emotional, you know, because
Mm,
I'm tapped into my heart, and I know those moments when I tapped into that space, and I've had to face um, things like self hate,
mhm,
with shame in that
mhm.
relationship correlation. And I just know what it feels like, man, when you're faced with a conditional response to something that you want to run away from.
Yes.
And I know for my own personal experience with that it takes a lot of that truth to kind of come through, and I've
Mhm,
I've been I've been fortunate to have great mentors and teachers to help me along with that. And part of the understanding with that is I've worked around these five qualities of the heart, and they're
mhm,
gratitude, openness, unconditional love, trust, and true respect slash
mhm.
humility. And as I work with those layers around the patterns of my heart and the conditions I've been raised with, it's really fascinating to see how each of those slivers of the kaleidoscope starts to just expand
Yeah.
and brighten up the light that I've been dimming from a lack of awareness and ignorance. And so I think a lot of that pain and suffering is from ignorance,
Yeah.
because we know that we're running away from something. We choose to be ignorant towards things, and we
Yeah.
play this game with it instead of facing it with a full heart. And I think that is truly what is kind of going on too on a collective scale. And
Yeah.
it's fear, man. It's really fear. And
Yeah.
we have to realize that fear is an illusion. It's something
Mm,
that's been created to
mhm,
dim ourselves and to dim our light, because the illusion in it is that it's something we create.
mhm.
And once we get past that aspect that we're creators in this game, we have to realize that we can create things that are amazing through a heart-based experience,
Yeah.
and which I find to be really amazing.
Yeah.
What I wanted to
I think.
ask you, sorry,
Oh
sorry,
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh,
I
I was
mean,
going to
to
ask
what
you.
let me just add something to what you
Yeah,
you 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 brought up there, because I think most people are not even realizing the game that is being played. And
mm,
I think it is, I like to give credit to people, because most human beings, they really craved what is best for them. They really do. I've
mm,
hardly seen any, even somebody who is who is wanting to end their life there, here. And I've talked with a few in my own journey. It's like, in that, at that moment, they really feel like this is the best I can do it. They really feel like I don't see any other way forward. So I have such great respect for the human psyche. Most human beings, they really, when they can see it, they will do the very best for themselves. And I
mm,
think there are so many initiations that we miss.
mm,
There are, I think there are core relationships that we weren't taught to develop. One of the things that I'm building strong, I have 3 children right now. One of the things that I'm building with each one of them, and they are still very young, and I hope there's a time where we can, I mean, when they grow, we're going to do that more consciously. Their relationship with fear,
mm,
their relationship with pain, their relationship with truth, their relationship with power, and their relationship with the responsibilities that come from power, that come with power. I find these relationships, let's say, I mean, when I say power and light, I kind of blend them together. Fear is a master teacher in my experience. And even like to break it down in multiple flavors. When through my work with the shadow with people, I started realizing there are 5/6 core main fears that can be crippling for many of us. And if we don't know how to be with all these flavors of fear, we immediately default. It's like we have knee-jerk reactions encoded within us. And
mm,
people usually, they are at the mercy of the game because the knee-jerk reactions take over. First, fear of humiliation. It's like somebody is going to humiliate me, make me feel like less than, and all of that. How do I deal with that? You know, it's like I want praise and I'm not met with praise. Instead, I'm met with ridicule or I'm being shamed for something. How do I handle the fear of humiliation? It's a massive one. That's the reason why some people are so afraid of speaking publicly, of being
Mm.
seen, of going, you know, that's fear of humiliation, fear of alienation slash exclusion. It's like, what is my nervous system's capacity to handle that fear? Meaning, can that fear be present and instead of contracting, I allow myself to find my spine? And alienation is a core fear. It's like if I get alienated by my parents, my tribe of origin, people I love, as a kid, it means death. So, what is my capacity as an adult to trust that I can handle that fear? I can handle
Mm.
exclusion. It, it's it's a powerful missing link for many people. It's something that needs to be trained. Like your psyche needs to build a tolerance for that. Fear of loss. It's like, what is my capacity to handle loss? Loss of status, financial loss, any other relational loss? What's my capacity to deal with that? These are
Mm.
core things. And sometimes we take it for granted. I've kept myself in jobs that I hated because I was afraid to lose. I mean, we human beings, I need to pay my bills, man. It's like
Right.
I can hear the voice of God that says, go ahead and do this, but I'll tell God, go fuck yourself. I'm the one who has to pay my bills, you know? So yes, you're pointing me towards purpose. Sure, I want to do it. I I dream about it. I get nightmares because I'm not doing it. But at the same time, I'm living as a human being on the earth plane, 3D reality. At the end of the day, I'm going to get hungry. Can I afford paying for decent food type thing? These fears are there. I would even expand the fear of persecution. It's like, okay, I allow myself to show up right now. And what if some Joe Blow from the internet comes in my, my message, my DMs, and tells me to go kill myself, telling me that I'm full of shit and whatever, attacks me, whether it's real or just perceived? What is my capacity to deal with the sense of like I am being deliberately attacked?
Mm.
That's a fear of persecution. Also a very core one. Some people have like, and you will see for so many people, for different people, the most predominant fear may vary. It's like there's this equalizer of fear that we all have. And the way it is set up depends on your personal history, sometimes even your ancestry. So sometimes the fear of death, and not necessarily the physical death, but a metaphorical death. The
Mm.
fear of like, oh, my identity may die. Some people are so afraid of that. It's like,
Mm.
who am I when I'm not attached to a specific identity? And also fear of betrayal. To the point that you were saying there, this is such a missing link for many people. I say many people need to literally go through a fear training,
Mm.
meaning, what is my capacity to stay connected to my body when fear is there?
Mm.
It is trainable. It is something, it's just the same way people go to the gym with microdosing exposure to these fears and working through the emotional burden. We can literally expand our nervous system's capacity to be in the presence of fear and say, I will not shut down my light. I will not abandon my power. I will not repress myself. I will reinforce within me that I can handle this thing. It's I think it's something that we can train. It goes beyond just the philosophical approach of fear. It's like there
Mm.
needs to be a biological or somatic approach of fear. It's like somatic training. I
Mm.
honestly, I think somatic martial arts, when it comes to fear, it's something that's necessary for people, for them to realize my body knows how to handle this. Therefore, I choose to honor my intuition. Therefore, I choose to open my heart to love. I know I may be hurt. I know I may be hurt, but I trust my capacity to handle heartbreak. Therefore, I choose to open my heart to love and I'll go forward. I know I may be disappointed. I know I might fail. And I trust my body to handle this. Therefore, let me go ahead and do this thing. I think it's a very important thing for many people at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you said you kind of answered one of my questions I was going to ask, because I was going to ask, I've just seen a very common link and thread with specifically men and
Hmm.
relationship to shame.
Yes.
And it's very strange. And I've dealt with it myself, and to honor the archetype of the king and the
Hmm.
warrior, there's that has played and somewhat of an allusion to relationship to shame, because
Hmm.
there's a part of us that tries to avoid that at all costs. And
Hmm.
I'm speaking from coming from a career that is built on shame,
Yeah.
because we teach people how to do things, and we will shame you for your mistakes. And so everything we do is in our power to avoid shame at all costs, because the
Hmm.
embarrassment or because of whatever it is, we strive for excellence. While in the back seat, that wound of shame is sitting there, kind of controlling a lot of the patterns in your life. And the other thing was, and it's kind of connected to it, is this lack of self acceptance that I
Hmm.
feel every human being has, and
Hmm.
it's built in. And I don't know if it's conditioned within our society, it's conditioned within the people who believe that they're in charge of this game board of life, and so forth. So I'd love for you to kind of break those two things down, because they're very important to me.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many layers. I think shame is first one of the most crippling emotions to work with. It's a difficult
Mhm.
teacher. It's really, really difficult. And instead of running from shame, I think our work is to learn how to romance shame.
Mm.
Not making, I don't want to glamorize the whole thing. It's challenging. People take their lives because they can't handle how much shame they carry within the body. So usually I see two tendencies when it comes to spiritual practitioners or even people in the healing professions. They kind of want to create this world that doesn't have shame, like nonviolent communication and all this and all that. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of being kind and you know compassionate in your delivery. I'm a big fan of this. I also don't think we ever gonna live on this 3D plane in a reality that is completely bulletproof of shame.
Mm.
It's like the emotional training. I mean, where I'm getting with this is the emotional maturity that we need to develop to match the level of spiritual awareness that we have grown into is huge and tremendous. Basically, if I were to give an an analogy, many people they have created this level of spiritual awareness. It's like they understand many spiritual laws, they understand so many spiritual principles, but
Mm.
usually there is the level of emotional maturity necessary to make all this spiritual knowledge embodied is
Mm.
lagging behind. And collectively, I think it's a big thing that we're experiencing. We need to
Totally.
mature in our capacity to be with some of the most difficult emotions ever. If we take the example of shame, for example, the example of shame, it has a lot to do with this fear of like humiliation, feeling inadequate within ourselves. It is
Mm.
really painful and challenging when we don't know how to be with the pain of humiliation. And I want to flip that to the other side a little bit. What we don't realize is we feel the gravity of shame the most when we are very attached to receiving praise.
Mm.
M- I'm going to slow down here because most people don't even realize that beneath a core fear of shame, there's a part of us that is screaming and starving for praise. It's like, I crave praise so much. That part is
Mhm.
saying, I crave praise from people who never saw me, from mom, from dad. I crave praise from teachers, from my crush in high school, from people that excluded me, whereas I wanted to be with them, to be a part of them. I crave praise, but no one ever gave me that praise. So therefore, I am left feeling inadequate.
Mm.
So with that, there is a form of divine, beyond embracing more compassion for ourselves, which is the movement. I like to think about embracing compassion for ourselves and self-acceptance as this movement upwards. It's
Mm.
like restores you in your spine. It gives you back your dignity.
Mm.
There's another movement downwards that also need to happen for the part of you that says, I was owed praise, but that I was never given. And there's a divine humbling that is needed there, which
Mm.
is no one owes me praise. No one owes me praise. No one owes me validation, appreciation, and all of that. And it hurts. There's the pain of that. Like really realizing no one truly owes me any praise, any appreciation. And as a man, I would love to receive praise first from my family, from my children, from my spouse. I would love for them to see me and to see everything I put myself through
Mm.
to take care of them, to provide, and all these different things. I would love for that to happen. Can I also love myself? If none of that were to ever happen, it is freaking hard. But it's my duty to be able to do that, especially when I feel unseen.
Mm.
Especially when I feel unseen, especially when I feel inadequate, especially when I'm attempting something out there, it doesn't seem to work out. What people don't realize is inside of us, we have internalized the voices, all the voices of like unhealthy shaming we received growing up,
Mm.
and it becomes the inner critic. All the unhealthy shaming we got from parents, from caregivers, it goes internally. It becomes this inner policing mechanism that is a distorted way of trying to protect yourself. Let's say before anybody else gets the chance to tell me how much of a piece of shit I am, at the very first sign of me not showing up to my potential, I will shame myself. I'd be like, look, you screwed this up again. You've been such a piece of shit, and all of that. It's like that language can be constant. We can even be very
Mm.
fused with that voice. So I think for everyone listening to this, especially men, because a great deal of our sense of self worth has been linked to how much am I able to perform? How much am I able to show up as the able one, the capable one, the dominant one, the providing one, and the useful human being to society? Because as men, we love that.
Mm.
I've never seen a man who can honestly tell me, I don't give a shit if I'm a deadbeat and if I'm just this, you know, I've never
Totally.
seen a guy, I've never ever seen a sane man look at me and say, I don't give a shit if I contribute to nothing and whatever. If somebody tells me that, usually it doesn't take a minute for me to look at them and I'll see the deep shame, and even that person is close to giving up. That person, if the person is not careful, you might hear within a couple months that the person is gone. Because they were just like complete giving up. Um, so building within ourselves the capacity to not just meet the shame with an open heart, or meet the part of us that was craving praise that never received it,
Mm.
the part of us that was craving appreciation that never received it. I mean, we as a collective, we need to be able to do that, especially men. But for many men, that pain is so terrifying. It's like the part of you that felt like, you know worth nothing, especially in a world where, for men, I think the gap from boyhood to manhood is so huge
You're right.
in the world. It's so fucking huge in the world of today, especially for men who have some kind of traditional expectations of what a man needs to be in the world of today. Meaning, oh, I'm going through puberty. I'm starting to have a crush on this girl. If I want to take her somewhere nice, I need to be able to afford, taking her there. It's all of a sudden all these responsibilities that are coming up. But let's suppose that you were a boy who just played your video game for for most of your teenage years, and you never got confronted with the responsibility that manhood we're going to bring your way. The gap can feel so huge, so crushing. And if there's no help, no strong bridge in between to guide you through that, what do you assume? I'm not worth much. I'm not worth much. So many men are living with that narrative inside of them, reinforced by the voice of the inner critic. So they are starved for encouragement, acknowledgement, nurturing, and that also there's the invitation there. It needs to become a part of the way we relate to ourselves. It's like, what would it feel like to encourage my? I've seen some guys, man. You just give them a little bit of encouragement, it's as if you melted their hearts. It's like how invaluable that is, for them to even feel safe to bring their vulnerability and sensitivity in another group of men and to hear that form of encouragement, which is, come on, bro, you can do it. I know you're scared, and I'm right there with you. I've gone through this edge so many times, and it feels like all the foundations of self-worth that you were holding onto are crumbling, and you're gonna make it through this thing. You're gonna be okay. This I want to say awakened inner father that is able to hold you and to be like, hey, this is fucking hard. It's fucking hard, but make no mistakes. You have within yourself what it takes to move through this. It just activates something inside of you. I don't know. I mean, we can dive into shame some more. This is what is coming from the get-go. I'm losing my train of thought.
No, it totally makes sense, right? A lot of it is reparenting ourselves.
Yeah.
That, like, I had a friend tell me, like, most of everyone is just a scared little boy and a scared little girl inside.
Yeah.
And for us to reparent ourselves, it does take that humility to step in, and then we start to embrace these really, really beautiful parts of ourselves. And once that comes into play, it magnifies and activates within ourselves, like that power we were talking about,
Yeah.
And I came into an agreement with myself to start to talk to some of those emotions, like fear, like they're little children, because that's really what they are, and it became a really corner point where my life started to take a left field internally, but when I did that, I realized there was so much of like a web that I had to unwind. And because there was so much of these core wounds that had tentacles all over the place. And in reference to like what shame, and what's beautiful, what you mentioned was like my relationship to shame brought me to like this form of myself that was okay with recognizing I can make mistakes and grow from them.
Yeah.
And what was powerful about that was like the tentacles that led back to where it started, man. Like just a clear example, like you mentioned the praise. I was raised with being praised too much. So I actually had to realize one of my core wounds was smothering. Like my mother smothered me so much that this praise became an addiction. And I had to realize what was my relationship to praise. And it was the fact that I was so addicted to it that I was seeking and built this pattern of perfectionism from wanting that drug again, or else I would go through withdrawal. And so when that part of me realized that, and the other side of the spectrum was being raised through a very predominant, legalistic, very religious Protestant lifestyle, I was built on guilt, sin. So my relationship with my mother, with being smothered, seeking praise as a drug, and then the other side of the spectrum of realizing I have to whip myself into going to heaven to avoid feeling that guilt, was a very fine point of destruction with my psyche. And
Mm-hmm.
what came through that revelation was my heart. And that was what the real transformation to that aspect came. But what's crazy is like, yeah, I have the self realization for that, which I loved
Yeah.
how you mentioned that spiritual like borderline, right? The
Yeah.
emotional dysregulation I had with that still needed to be brought up and to be integrated and to be fused with that part, with that portion of that realization. So
Yeah.
it's almost like we're leapfrogging the moments of ourselves to get the self-realization. Okay, cool. Now let's see if you're going to match up to that frequency with that self-realization of the mind with the heart. And that's
Yeah.
the balancing point is when we're coming to these steps, these stepping stones within our life internally.
Yeah.
What's amazing is when we do the internal work, the outside world will now reflect to you what's happening internally, which
Yeah.
I find to be truly amazing. And
Yeah.
I just love to be on this road to awe of how amazing this inner work is. But the part of it I think I found myself at a crossroad was the outreach to other people and wanting so much for them to reach where I'm at had
Yeah.
caused some harm to myself because
Oh yeah.
I extended myself too much in that way. So what I find to be powerful is conversations like this with yourself, because we can talk about this experience and bring some type of awareness to it,
Mm-hmm.
because we're never taught this stuff. I was never taught this stuff. Like how are we supposed to teach um these things without the ability to have the awareness,
Yeah.
um truly amazing, Xavier. I mean, when you speak, brother, like I really, there's pieces of me that start to kind of like crumble a little bit. I'm like, man, I think I missed the part of my own self that's still kind of that reaching that integration that really is thirsty for it. I
Yeah.
think one of the things you had mentioned was like, just like the manhood part, we put so much emphasis on this fixed expectation, how we see what we're supposed to be. And that is a heartbreaking for us when we
Mm-hmm.
don't reach that. It's like this fixed expectation, and like that fixed expectation is so devastating when we don't reach it.
Yeah.
And so, but what comes in is that self-compassion, that we can
Mm-hmm.
we can have within ourselves that really gives us this, I don't know, it's a start. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It also gives you a second breath, a second engine. Because usually
Mm,
what most men do is, if you pay attention, there's a big proportion of men who just gave up the game, or the societal game. They're just like, well, I'm gonna take care of myself. I'm gonna I'm gonna maybe not, I'm gonna give up the dating scene, and I understand why. Um I may give up on wanting to even have a family. There's a big proportion of men that were just like, yeah, it doesn't seem like this world wants me, or that I'm built for the world, and stuff like that. That's kind of loud in some, you know, subsections of the men out there. And the more you are able to embrace that compassion, it takes you out of the capitulation, giving up. It's
mm,
like, it even gives you a second breath of, I will even more embrace. I will embrace, the responsibility that come with being a respectable man. A man in touch with his heart. A man in touch with his power, with his soul. Because the definition of manhood we were given has solid foundations. It's like, you know, be an able dude who is able to show up for people he loves and cares about, can provide for them when needed, and all of these different things. That's foundational in him, and powerful, can protect when needed, and also be the one that can exemplify it. Right now, this is coming up. Be the guy that can exemplify what it means to live in harmony with the divine essence inside of you,
mm,
what it looks like to be on purpose, but not the kind of purpose that will take you away again from your family, or from people you care, because that as well was an archetype. The
mm,
man of purpose that would just like go. He's gone. He doesn't have time for people who care about him. No, it's like The purpose took over him and he doesn't give a shit about anything else now. It's
Mm.
the invitation is, can you be the rooted man in purpose, also in touch with your community, also here, also available? For me, it has looked like that with my kids. I can lose myself in writing. I can lose myself in contemplating. Over the last few years, I've spent so much time writing my book, and it has been also consuming. There's a part of me that was the hermit inside of me that was just sometimes fantasizing about not having some of my responsibilities. But I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I get woken up by my by our third child, Eli. He wakes up usually before everybody else, and I gotta put the hat, the dad of the hat first. Sorry, the
Mm.
hat of the dad first. Can that
Right.
be okay? Yes. And can I also find room for the heart and all of that? So the embodied soulful man, I think this is what these times are calling. Not the one that will be, the flow boy disconnected from the ground. Embodied, soulful, present.
Mhm.
It's a tall order.
Yeah.
Man, it's fucking hard. Especially when all the other responsibilities have not vanished. They've not vanished, they're still there. So, how the masculine nervous system and psyche and heart is being stretched right now is
Yeah.
huge. And sometimes, the rest of the world might not really appreciate how much friction men are dealing with at the moment. And that's okay. But the thing I really want to, if you're a guy and you're listening to this right now, here's what I want to offer to you. Ask yourself this question often, especially when you feel dysregulated, especially when you feel angry for no reason, especially when I don't know, you feel like something is not working well. Ask yourself, the part of me right now that is feeling a flavor of shame that I haven't allowed myself to sit with is, just ask yourself that question. What I am feeling inadequate about in this moment is, just ask yourself that question. Because for most men, feeling inadequate, feeling not enough is usually a big trigger. And that can show up as anger, that can show up as, wanting to go consume porn or whatever vice it is you have. Feeling inadequate, huge, massive trigger, and we may have our own mechanism to discharge that feeling of inadequacy. So ask yourself, I feel inadequate about, and how I treat myself when I feel inadequate is. Instead of treating myself that way, something else I could do is how I could speak life into the part of me that feels inadequate is. How I could speak words of compassion to the part of me that feels inadequate is. And just be with that for a second. Maybe just take 5 minutes, because sometimes we carry the weight of our disappointments into so many different areas of our lives, the shame, the inadequacy, and the frustrations we have, and the critic takes over and just hijacks your self-worth left, right, and center. It's like, okay, I need to be a first responder, internally. I need to go in there and to speak to the part of me that feels inadequate. Can I do that? If that alone is a practice that you start anchoring, it will have such a huge impact on many areas of your life. Yeah.
So well put, man. I mean, it does take the first step to do that inner work with yourself. But I always
Mm-hmm.
tell people, like, just ask yourself the right questions, you get the right answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once you start playing with that and start using those simple things, you don't have to make it sacrilegious by sitting in meditation every day. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be like that. It can
Yeah.
just be 5 minutes of conscious asking yourself questions, the parts of yourself that are seeking validity or just wanting to be seen within yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I always tell people to, like, start with things that are disturbing to you in your consciousness, things that are cringe within yourself, like that. There's
Yeah.
always like this meme, like it's like a Buddha, and it says like love all except all that is cringe within
Yeah.
oneself, and it's like so
Yeah.
hilarious, right? Because we have these conditional responses to when we cringe inside, and I had asked my fiance, I was like, hey, you feel cringe from what I just said right now? She's like, yeah. I was like, what is that? And it
Yeah.
was a funny, uh, non-pressured conversation. It's
Mm.
shame, it's an embarrassment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When we see ourselves, and when I first started this podcast, I had to like start realizing when I felt cringe and then editing my voice over and over and over. I was like, dude, I'm getting sick of hearing my voice. It was like,
Yeah.
but I had to get over that because it
Yeah.
was a form of lack of self acceptance. And it was this shame that I was feeling, right? That needed to be integrated. But
Mm-hmm.
through that came confidence and the resilience to that false version of myself that's just nudging at me to cause some form of self-harm because it was a lack of integration. So
Yeah.
like it's just, but it's so simple, but I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors right now within this
Yeah.
spiritual community, especially with this like new age dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to cut through that with truth and love.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side of the spectrum, which is darkness and these other emotions we fail to feel, which is what you were talking about, those undesirable truths.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe like the truth can be somewhat subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the way I've given this example for people is like if you're driving on the road and you see a car and it's got a donut tire, it's not running true with the rest of the tires. It's
Yeah.
just meaning that something's out of balance or out of alignment. It doesn't mean that it's untrue in
Mm-hmm.
itself of the entirety of the whole. It just means that once you replace that tire with the right integration, now you have the whole system running in alignment. That's
Mm.
truth. That's universal truth. And we cannot deny that in itself,
Yeah.
but for the person experiencing that ride on the road, you can feel something's off balance. So you have to take the effort within yourself to go seek to find what's out of alignment within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes great courage, great responsibility to do this. And when you mentioned the masculine getting stretched, man, like I really felt that because I felt like I was carrying a heavy load for the masculine at some point,
Yeah.
and it felt like a really big responsibility. And I remember when I first started this podcast, it was almost like an initiation I had to go through in
Mm-hmm.
order to like just shed some stuff I needed to shed in order to have to sit in this seat to speak,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like the universe saying, "Oh, you want to do this? Let's go. Let's face some stuff you needed to shed."
Yeah.
Because it was almost like this removal of a
Mm.
frequency in order for this entity to be created to go walk and take care or go off and do what it needs to do. Because
Yeah.
now I just carry it as like a leash,
Yeah.
and I just let it do what it needs to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's so important. I think what you mentioned there is just the law of physics. You're
Mm,
reaching for more light. That light needs room in your psyche. And that means there is capacity that needs to be created. It's
mm,
like I want to invite something in this space. Spaciousness needs to be created for the thing that I'm inviting. And like as simple as that. It's really as simple as that. And what I like to say is when people say I want this, fill in the blank with whatever the hell you want. When you say I want this, see it as a medicine journey. To me, every desire is a form of a medicine journey. And I like to tell people go with the bias that everything that is unfolding on the journey of you actualizing what you've said you desire is benevolently supporting what you've said you desire. Whether it's a shadow that is emerging for you to integrate it, or whether it's some beauty that is unfolding, nice results or whatever. It's like just see it as a holistic integration of what you've called forth. It's like this is the prayer being manifested. And one thing that has started for me is I just stopped wanting to look at things that are difficult as something that is going wrong in my life. I just stopped. I just decided that I'm going to stop looking at things that way. I'm going to welcome it as the expansion it is, as the clearing it is, as the creation of capacity that it is. But I will stop declaring that there is something fucked up going on, that there is something wrong. And I will be a cooperative component of this harmonious dance between dark and light that
Mm.
wants to happen for me to expand, because it is that, at the very least, that's how I choose to perceive it. It is this harmonious dance between
Mm.
light and dark. If you say you want to become that soulful man, just get ready to um to see all the ways your character is not optimal.
Mm.
That's necessary on the path of becoming a soulful man, an integrated man. It's important. That's what you've prayed for. But usually when that comes up, we're like, fuck, something's gone wrong. I'm screwing things up. It's like, no, this is literally the answer to your prayer. So
Mm.
embrace it. So the more we have this view of integrated expansion, the more we bless the shadow with benevolent purpose, which
Mm.
is we recognize it as, oh, this is just the counterpart of the expansion that I've called forth. It is normal, it is appropriate, I welcome it. Whether it shows up as some physical ailment, whether it shows up as some emotional turmoil, whether it shows up as, it doesn't matter, some difficult emotion that you get to be with, oh, this is a counterpart of the expansion that I've called forth. And I consciously decide to bless it with the most benevolent outcome. Let me embrace it. Let me illuminate it. Let me look into it. And therefore, you really start embracing the path of the heart warrior, which is that part of you that can meet whatever life has to bring your way with an open heart. And that means sometimes even your fears with an open heart. Sometimes even when you're freaking tired of being an alchemist, you made that too with an
Mm.
open heart. Sometimes even your hopelessness, because there are moments where I'm tired, man. There are moments where I'm
Right.
like, shit, like I don't feel necessarily that I have the stamina to meet yet again another battle. Even that, I'm gonna meet myself there with an open heart.
Mm.
That doesn't look like I'm gonna drag myself to sit with my pain and whatever. No, I'm just gonna be with the feelings of like I'm fucking tired right now. So there is a refinement. I don't want to use the word softening because sometimes men have a tendency to kind of like reject
Yeah.
that, but there's a refinement that is
Yeah.
happening right now. It's a new form of strength. It's a
Mm.
different quality of strength that is showing up. It's not just the rah rah kind of strength that says
Mm.
let's go kill it regardless of how broken the body is type of strength. It's a new form of it that we are learning to embrace as well, and I think it's needed right now.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you say it so well, man, because I've just experienced that, uh, just like perception of like the feminine qualities that didn't want to, like, for instance, like compassion, it's seen as like
Mhm.
a weakness,
Oh yeah.
and vulnerability as a weakness.
Oh yeah.
Those things have the labels we've placed on that for such a long time. I've seen that as the biggest strengths of my life when
Mhm.
I've invited those two qualities, self nurturing, receptivity, creation. Those feminine qualities have actually they've been perceived as feminine, but they're power in itself and power in the
Yeah.
masculine to hold
Yeah.
those things. And I mean, we have to integrate both those two frequencies, right, in order to emit a transmission that's going to transform other people after we've integrated those parts in ourselves.
Yeah.
How are you on time right now, brother?
I'm pretty good on time. Yeah.
Dude, I feel like I can talk to you for hours,
Yeah.
and I think for a while, man, I felt like so isolated, you
Hmm.
know, because no one understood what I was experiencing. And that in itself was devastating.
Hmm.
Like I think for a very long time, I needed to be in that isolation. It was a
Hmm.
requirement for me in order to just sit with everything at once.
Mhm.
And that was one of the gifts, was being able to sit within that discomfort, to sit within everything I hated about myself. And the moment I allowed stillness to come as a daily practice for myself is when everything started to just fall into place. These jigsaw
Yeah.
puzzles started to just meet their way into finding the the way of it all, like the whole mural of it all. And as I started to realize that was like an art form, a
Mhm.
stillness, and listening, those two
Mhm.
things became a very key component to my evolution, because it just started to, there was no force.
Yeah.
There's no act that needed to be done. It was actually the law of non-action that started to come into play, for things to kind of fall into place. And I think, for me, it was like, I speak for other men too, is the emotion that I was running away from. And the emotion was just, thinking that emotion is weak, emotion is just not even there. But when it came full throttle, it came to this point of myself of surrender
Mhm.
that allowed I felt that that was even a master key, way we talked about the heart. When we have this surrendering heart to it all, that's
Mhm.
when our transformation starts to make way. And
Mhm.
I think the only way we see surrender is through the military. Like, oh, when you're fighting, you have to wave this white flag. And that's not it. That's just like a version of what we've seen it in war. But
Mhm.
when we lay down our sword is when true transformation comes through internally. And that
Mhm.
that sword is through defense mechanisms, because when we are defending ourselves, we are attached to an identity.
Mhm.
And these identities are these versions of ourselves that are not true. And
Mhm.
so once we start to integrate these versions of identifications with things, I always tell people, ask yourself what you're defensive about, then you know what identity you're attached to. So follow that
Mhm.
road, and it'll lead you into what these identities are being created as, the conditions that are supporting those identities, and the laws we're creating in order to enact those identities to take form. And so, like, I think we create these laws that are very hidden, very subtle, and the way it's supporting a condition.
Mhm.
But that in itself is so, we have to listen and use the art form of stillness to find out what are those laws we're creating, because it's not in alignment with a universal law at some point. So it's going back to that truth, and it's leading you to find what the truth is, so it can be replaced and be coming back into alignment, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I think in this whole process, and it joins, I mean, it gets connected to what I mentioned at the beginning. It's like, what is the quality of your relationship with truth? Um, I think that's the cornerstone. It's, um, I mean, I wish I was able to offer something that is a more important way to illustrate that it is really a cornerstone. But I don't. I don't have another way of illustrating it. I think it is really a cornerstone. It's like, what is the quality of my relationship to truth? Because I think
Mhm,
truth with a big T is one of the faces of God. As
mhm,
simple as that. And we are, it is the ultimate reality, and we are learning to be in a healthy relationship with reality, that ultimate reality. And until we are in a healthy relationship with that reality, which is, that truth with a big T, we are in a form of fantasy, and
mhm,
also we are also in a relationship with the suffering that comes from our attachment to that kind of fantasy. So what you're
mhm,
bringing up there, it's like, am I willing to have this a highly devoted relationship to myself? Not individualistic, not in like I'm the only one that ever matters in the world type thing, but it's like, do I really wish to be intimate
mhm,
with me in a way that only I can do? Am I really willing to be intimate, not just with my values, but also with my shortcomings, but also with my, you know, let's call it what I perceive as inadequacies. Am I really willing to be intimate with that? Do I really wish to know myself? All the Buddhist texts say, know thyself. But there needs to be some sort of, like on insurance contracts, there needs to be a fine print. It's like you're going to be scared shitless. You're going to have to meet the things that you don't want to see about yourself. I find that fascinating. Honestly, to me right now is there's a little bit of this love story with the human psyche or the human consciousness. I
Mm.
find this fascinating. And maybe it's something that is uniquely personal to me, but I don't think so. But I have deep fascination for the human psyche. And you were talking about the surrender not as waving the white flag. It is also so critical. Um, I often like to poke people when I talk about surrender. I'm like, are you willing to submit? You
Mm.
know, um, not just surrender, because surrender is nice and all that, and I'm a big fan of it. But I'm usually trying to push it to the next degree. It's like, are you willing to let your ego submit to what your heart is saying? Not from a
Mm.
place of giving up, but from a place of choosing what you know is better for you. It's a conscious choice. It is not
Mm.
waving the flag. It is waving the ego, basically. It's like, are you willing to submit? And instead of playing the games that you know are not really serving you, uh, and one thing that is so important in the middle is, are you also willing to meet the resistance to the surrender? Surrender is not just this easy thing. It's you can say I surrender, I surrender. You can use I surrender as a mantra, and it will not budge that much if there is deep resistance that you need to meet in the middle, that you need to also explore and understand the roots. So, in the process of surrender, I like to invite people, let's dive into the resistance to surrender, the fears
Mm.
that are attached in there. Can we explore them? So it's
Mm.
radical intimacy, not just with like, am I willing to surrender, but also, oh, the part of me that is afraid of surrendering wants to say, I fear that if I surrender, what might happen is,
Mm.
and you keep diving in, you keep diving in. These parts they want to be heard. And the more you start hearing these parts, the more they might reveal maybe some desires or needs that deep down you think, oh, I'm not going to have this need met if I really surrender. And with that comes another question. The other ways in which I can have the same need met, maybe in ways that I didn't think about before. These ways are, ways that I can have this need met that do not require that I abandon myself. What does that look like? That do
Mm.
not require that I suppress my purpose. What does that look like? So, beyond everything, I really want to say that, radical intimacy with ourselves in a very honest and compassionate way is a cornerstone of transformation. I don't know if there's anything else that um can create deeper transformation than that.
No, I totally agree. I've came to different layers of surrender, and like, and what came with it was like there's a protection mechanism
Hmm.
that was blocking the doorway from me to wanting to surrender that part of myself.
Yeah.
And I think there are there's a lot of arrogance and self-righteousness, I think,
Hmm.
that gets in the way of it all. And I have
Hmm.
a very strange relationship with the ego, because like I don't want to I don't want to demonize the ego. I
Hmm.
really believe it's a reflection of the soul, and it's there for a reason.
Hmm.
So why are we shaming that part of ourselves when that's a piece of us? I think there's a lot of like these negative viewpoints on it, and I really don't believe that, because there's moments in my life where the ego has been my teammate and ally, especially in moments where I required this willpower, this version to just rise up and meet me where I needed it.
Hmm.
But the self righteousness and arrogance were were the patterns that really kept me from meeting like a different layer, of the self. And what I met with those things was the power of humility. And I think we don't really, a lot of us truly don't understand the like what humility really is
Mhm.
unless we've met a form of those the shame or the guilt that brought us to the level of honoring that emotion or those
Mhm.
emotions. But humility is so divine in itself because it's a version of respect
Mhm.
for oneself and reverence for the world around us.
Mhm.
And I think when we hold a deep respect for the things outside of ourselves, we learn that self mirroring piece of respect, man. And I think we all could learn a lot from those two things of respect and humility because it gives us an opportunity of growth in a different way. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is like man, I don't even know how to give an example for it because it's just it's so much light involved with it, but so much darkness at the same time. If that makes
I
sense.
think humility is such I mean, humility wants to ground us.
Mm,
Self-righteousness and arrogance are basically ways we put ourselves on a pedestal.
yeah.
And the pedestal basically says, "Hey, you know what? When I stand here, I I only feel safe when I'm right. I only feel safe when the world matches what I think um is correct. It has to be what I see, or or I don't want to put my subject myself to it. It's kind of like that feeling. It's like if it's not the way I see things, I don't want to subject myself to it. So it is ungrounded. It is disconnected from the ground.
Mm,
And also, there's a shadow version of humility that is basically like, look how small I am. Like, I am a
mm,
speck of sand on the, it's like the Christian version of it. I'm a speck of sand in the entire firmament or whatever. This is how small I am. Sure, yes. On some level, it is true. And at the same time, there's an essence of divinity within me. So the shadow of humility wants to bury you. Like we are dust, we return to dust. Yes, that's true. And I want to say a grounded humility, or I like to think of it as divine humility. It wants to restore you on the appropriate place on the bridge between humanness and divinity.
mm,
It just restores you to that appropriate place, which is I'm human. There's so much that I don't know. I don't even know what I don't know. And also, I release the need to let my humanness cause me to reject my brightness. So I see humility as this potent bridge, which is, can I hold my humanness without disowning my brightness? Can I be, instead of being above the ground, can I be in touch with the ground? Can I stand on it? Like really
mm,
being in touch with it. Not being buried, which is a shadow of humility, which is I'm nothing. I'm nothing whatsoever. Dear God, look at
right.
me. I'm nothing. No. It's like, can I be on the ground? Can I have a healthy relationship with the divine? Not just as a, we all like the thought form of being a servant of God, and which is great, by the way. I'm not saying the opposite. I doubt, and again, this is my personal perception, I doubt that you would have been sent here with free will if God wanted a servant. I think God is way more interested in a harmonious co creation with you than it is interested in servitude, where you are just doing as you're told.
Right.
Period. If I was a God that wanted to serve a slave or a servant, or just like you just do as you're told, I wouldn't give you free will. So if you have even the capacity to say, fuck you, dear God, like fuck you, intuition, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to live a miserable life. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to force me to follow my purpose? No. We are so powerful we can resist God. Therefore, it's really hard for me to believe that that divine essence wanted you to be in complete servitude. It desires to be in harmonious co-creation. That's the way I choose to see it. And in my view of humility, it is descend from the pedestal of self-righteousness, which is I only feel safe when I'm right, to a place where, oh, I also feel safe when I have it wrong.
Mm.
I also feel safe when I don't see things clearly. I can also love myself when what I thought was right was complete bullocks or bullshit. I can love myself right there. That is a humility that just causes the divine to say, oh, you can hold more light. There you go. You can actually hold and handle more light. There you go. Because the person who says, I am only safe when I'm right, cannot handle a great deal of light. Cannot at all. It will basically destroy you. So when you're really in touch with the ground, you can become that lightning rod that can
Mm.
actually handle thunder and lightning. You know, it's like, oh, you can handle more light, so there you go. So there's a there's a mystical dimension to humility,
Mm.
you know, powerful mystical dimension to it. And I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what that mystical humility is. It is not burying yourself under the ground, in my opinion. It is not, no, it is not being a speck of sand, even though to a point we are some of that as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't even
you
have
see,
the right language to express it at the moment.
totally understand that. You know, I've come to so many like blockades on my path where there I can experience this emotion slash experience in itself that I cannot put words to, that uh that I have a hard time with. But I realize that it's like the conduit of what I'm holding is being expanded over time. And
Yeah.
the more I expand that conduit, the more I can hold that information. And so I like to see it as like over time, I'm building information. And so the
Mm-hmm.
answers come as I'm expanding the conduit,
Mm-hmm.
as the more information starts building within the field. Now, when I'm ready, that information will come through. And
Mm-hmm.
it can, that's why like there's a famous expression that enlightenment can come with a fart,
Mm-hmm.
because like if we seek it, it will not come to you, which is a
Mm-hmm.
paradox in itself.
Yeah.
And if we just focus on our walk of life, the beauty of it is not having these fixed expectations, these intentions that start to just crumble the beauty of curiosity, that start to crumble the beauty of just the shock of an experience that is divinity in itself, wanting to collaborate in this intimacy with you. And not saying that you don't fail to make plans or intentions on things, but balance it out to where there's beauty in wanting to be receptive to things that come from left field,
Mm-hmm.
because that's like the gift that's being offered to you. And so if we just have this rigorous shell that we want to just control and ride this vehicle, then like the gifts won't come. And I think there comes like there's some alchemization with that one, with the way we're perceiving our walk of life.
Yeah.
And that's where like the opening up ourselves to the release of control, or the release of your grip on what you want to happen, is it's in order for something to come in, something has to be released. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of our grip on the reins of this ride needs to be loosened a little bit in order for those things to collaborate, you know, especially like inner information, inner alchemy to come through. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think I've had a really difficult relationship with realizing like I've believed in order to grow, you need hard things, or you need difficult things in order to grow. And that was a shattering perspective for myself when I realized like, hey, that's actually a belief system in myself, that I need so much difficulty in order to transform. But is that true in itself? And the answer was no. And that's why I love how your relationship with truth and your definition of that is it's so very profound to me, because I will ask my question and my perception of things if that's true or not.
Yeah.
And the way I run that through my system is if I feel it's true. It's a feeling I can experience, and
Hmm.
it's resonating into my system. If it doesn't resonate, I know it's not a truth.
Yeah.
And so, like, over time, I've collaborated on running that through the system, and asking the right question with it. Hey, is that true?
Yeah.
And that's when a lot of the false versions of myself will put a lie into the thought of my head, or a
Yeah.
vision or something like that. And I ask myself, hey, is that true?
Hmm.
Because when it's no, that whole system starts just disintegrates. And I've
Yeah.
worked my way through harboring that maturity of my nervous system,
Hmm.
or my conditions or my conditional responses to a fear or a thought, or a version that just wants to kind of just be an asshole for a little bit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I have this version
Yeah.
of myself that's this scared little teenager kid who's an anarchist, who's a complete asshole and likes to mess with me or fuck with me all the time. And
Hmm.
so when I just play with it a little bit, it's an archetype of me,
Hmm.
of just realizing the core of it is just deep hurt and
Yeah.
deep wounding. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's just so funny and hilarious the way if we look at it through a hilarious viewpoint or hilarious
Hmm.
lens, um, that's when the mastery comes, when we
Hmm.
start to see life in that way, because it doesn't have to be so terrible all the time.
Yeah.
It can be
You
this
see,
effortless, harmonious love.
yeah. In that though, there's also that anarchist you were talking about, that teenage part of you that is basically challenging rules.
Mhm.
It also has a higher purpose. It's like the anarchist wants to challenge. If you look at like anarchy, has it, maybe linguistically, it's related a little bit to chaos.
Mm.
And I find that archetype really interesting because it has a shadow side, which is fuck all your rules. I don't want to do this and blah blah blah. It also has a brighter side, which is some of these rules are limiting and you need to challenge them. We need
Mm.
to soften you need a new law over
Mm.
here. So the anarchist sometimes comes to challenge, especially these laws. You've mentioned, for example, the relationship with suffering and how sometimes we feel like we need suffering. I think it is completely true in a specific paradigm. In the paradigm where we have an unhealthy relationship with with pain, yeah, let's include shame. When we have an unhealthy relationship with pain, with fear, very often we transform through suffering. The more we build the capacity to be with pain and fears, the more we start realizing, oh, I don't need suffering to transform because I can willingly be with something that's challenging. And there is this embrace of something that is challenging. And because of this embrace, it no longer turns into suffering, it doesn't fester.
Mm.
Pain that we refuse to see festers into suffering. Fears that we resist, it festers into suffering because there's a rejection of what is already here within us that we cannot run from. But the very moment somebody creates the emotional capacity to be with pain with an open heart and with fears with an open heart, suffering as a catalyst of transformation becomes less and less needed. That's what I keep realizing. It's like, oh, I'll just embrace it. I don't need to suffer, meaning I don't need to come to fight against the pain or to fight against the fear. I don't need to resist it. I'll embrace it. It becomes so much more graceful. And I think it's also part of what we are learning at the moment here.
Yeah, totally. And pain's a weird one, because I what started my path was pain, like
Hmm.
physical pain.
Hmm.
And working around the injury, which I first started off, through Western medicine, and
Hmm.
realized like nothing had helped me. And
Hmm.
what I had started my pain was I had injured my foot from I used to run marathons,
Hmm.
and I had plantar fasciitis in my right foot, and it was paralyzing.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and nothing had helped me. And so it over time, like it became metaphysical, where I started to understand the metaphysical relationship to what my foot was telling me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it became really interesting because it was in a spiritual experience after I started diving into it, and it just the more I pulled the tail that's kind of wagging at the end, I pulled out like this huge animal, you know what I mean, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it was, wagging at that tip or whatever I can grab.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the beginning of how I started to understand how the body is gonna cry what the eyes refuse to shed. You know, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it was just this grief, you know, unprocessed grief and sadness and hurt, and the courage to take within yourself to just let it go and feel the grief is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the one of the most beautiful experiences of the human experience in itself is to feel that grief, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you let it go, it's just like it's like an activation when you're realizing the deep hurt or what else that can be connected to like a wound or like a belief system or a fear. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. And I think what there was there was a point of devastation for myself along my path was like this um like really like anger and sadness for giving my power away to someone
Mm-hmm.
else. And that like really broke me when I realized that, because it was so dehumanizing, and you have to give it away in order
Mm-hmm.
for someone to take it. That's the thing. And and that devastation within that, man, that really broke me. And there was so much grief with that, so much harm that I had self-inflicted upon myself from my own power being given away. And I'm sure it's happening with everyone to have that realization, you know?
Um, I think the first thing we grieve is the first thing we learn to repress is light. I don't think it's pain. I
Mm,
think it's light. So that's one of the first things the grief is inviting us to reclaim. When you're growing up and you feel powerless, the first thing you repress is not the pain that came from the powerlessness. It is actually the light that was pushed, shoved away.
mm,
Um, so the grief for the power that wasn't expressed is something that is systematic. It's when I no systemic,
mm,
and until we allow ourselves to go there, it is hard to reclaim that power. One of the things that I've heard from many people I've worked with, when they come close to that grief and pain, they basically saying they usually have the regret for all the years where they didn't know how to get in touch with that. It almost comes out without fail. It's like, holy crap, I've gone through so many years where I wish I had been able to do this, to express this. It's a systemic form of grief.
mm,
It's the soul realizing, oh crap, this mattered. This mattered. And
mm.
yeah, I think we all get at times to be with that. Yeah.
Man, dude, I can get lost talking to you, dude. um, I think we're gonna close up here though,
Yeah.
on time, but dude, thank you so much for taking your time and speaking and giving us like some of your wisdom and truly, dude, thank you so much for this experience. It was really profound to connect with you.
And it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. And again, I just hope that through listening, some people can surrender to whatever they are feeling inside of them that is calling them to basically surrender with to this. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thank you so much, brother. Everyone, thank you for listening. If you want to like, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, please do that so we can help other first responders listen to conversations like these, so we can help share the love and spread the message of you not needing to be alone and suffering in silence. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Xavier. And I will put anything on descriptions of how to connect with you on your website and the work that you do, along with your podcast episode, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's time for Crab Lives.